She told the insurance company I was dead, not metaphorically, not in the way mothers sometimes say their children are dead to them when they're angry. She filed a life insurance claim on the policy she had opened in my name without my knowledge, listed me as deceased, and collected $41,000. She did this in March of 2019. I found out in February of 2026. By then, I had been married to the forensic accountant who audited her employer for 11 months. My name is Nadia Reyes. I am 32 years old. Welcome to Quiet Evidence. This is where we talk about the kind of family damage that doesn't leave bruises, the kind that leaves paper trails. If something in this story lands somewhere familiar, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll be here every week. Let me tell you exactly what happened. The call came in at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. I was sitting at the kitchen island in the house Marcus, and I had been renting in Decatur, Georgia for 8 months. I had a glass of water in front of me and a yellow legal pad to my left, where I'd been drafting a staffing proposal for the hospital system I work for. The overhead light was on. The window above the sink was dark. Marcus was in the study at the back of the house, finishing a report. I could hear the low sound of his keyboard. My phone lit up on the counter. My mother's name, Dolores Reyes. I let it ring twice before I answered. Old habit. 2 rings was always enough time to decide which version of myself to be before I picked up. Mija, she said. Her voice was the warm one, the one she used when she needed something. I want to come for Thanksgiving. I want to see the house. You've been in that house almost a year and I haven't seen it once. I looked at the legal pad. I had written the word staffing at the top and underlined it twice. I said, I'll let you know closer to the date. She said, don't do that. Don't let me know closer. Just say yes. I am your mother. I want to see where my daughter lives. I said, I'll let you know, Mama. She paused, the kind of pause that has a shape to it. Then she said, you've been strange since you married him. I don't know what he has done to you, but you've been strange. I said, I have to go. I hung up. I set the phone face down on the counter. I picked up the pen. I wrote the word staffing again underneath the first time I written it, and I underlined it once. Marcus came out of the study about 20 minutes later. He looked at the legal pad. He looked at me. He said, your mother. I said, she wants to come for Thanksgiving. He said, what do you want? I said, I want to finish this proposal. He went to the refrigerator. He poured himself a glass of water. He stood at the counter and drank half of it. He didn't tell me what to do. He never did. That was the first thing I noticed about him. And it is still the thing I notice most. I want to back up. Because if you only heard that phone call, you think I was being cold for no reason. You think a mother wanting to see her daughter's house was a reasonable thing. I want to tell you why I didn't think it was reasonable. I want to tell you why I had been counting the rings before I answered her calls for the better part of a decade. When I was 19, I won a regional scholarship from the Georgia Hospital Association for an essay I wrote about healthcare access in rural communities. It was $3,500. The ceremony was on a Saturday morning in April at a hotel ballroom. In Macon, the program said family members were encouraged to attend. I told my mother 3 weeks in advance. I told her the date, the hotel name, the time. I wrote it on the paper calendar she kept on the refrigerator under a magnet shaped like a hummingbird. I circled the date in red pen, the Saturday of the ceremony. My cousin Tom's had a travel baseball tournament in Savannah. He was 14. He played third base. He had been playing third base since he was 9. My mother sat me down on the Thursday before and said, Mija, you understand. Tom's only gets one shot at this tournament. His father can't take him, you know how his father is. I am the only one he has right now. I said, okay. I drove myself to Macon. I was 19. I had a license for 11 months. I drove 2 hours alone on Interstate 75 in a car that needed an oil change. My Aunt Cecilia, my father's sister, met me in the parking lot. She was wearing a blue dress she'd bought the week before. She held my arm when they called my name. When the program director handed me the check, she took a photograph on a disposable camera she had brought from home. I still have that photograph. My aunt is in it. My mother is not. When I got home that evening, my mother was on the phone with her sister recounting Tom's double play in the fourth inning. She did not ask about the ceremony. She did not ask about the speech. She did not ask if the drive had been long. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and I wrote one sentence on the inside cover of a spiral notebook I used for my college biology class. I was 19. I didn't know it would matter. She will always have somewhere else to be. I followed that sentence for 13 years. I followed it when I graduated from Georgia State with a degree in health administration. And my mother arrived 40 minutes late because she had stopped to pick up Thomas from a friend's house. I followed it when I got my first director level job at 30 and called my Aunt Cecilia before I called anyone else. I followed it when I started dating Marcus and said nothing to my mother for 4 months because I had learned by then that telling her things was not the same as sharing them. Telling her things was handing her material. I want to tell you where that lesson came from because it didn't start at 19. It started earlier. When I was 16, I had a best friend named Priya. We had been close since 7th grade. We spent every weekend together. We studied together. We talked about everything. Priya's family was moving to Charlotte at the end of our junior year. The summer before she left, we spent 3 months doing everything we could think of in Atlanta. We went to every free museum. We drove to Stone Mountain at sunrise. We ate at every restaurant on Beaufort Highway that we could afford on babysitting money. I made the mistake of telling my mother how much Priya meant to me. I made it because my mother had asked in one of her war moments why I seemed so sad lately. I wanted to give her something. I wanted to be the kind of daughter who could answer her mother honestly on a Sunday afternoon. My mother called Priya's mother 2 days later. I didn't know that until much later. She told Priya's mother that she was concerned about the intensity of the friendship. She said she worried the girls were becoming too dependent on each other. She said it the way she said everything, gently, carefully, like someone who only wanted what was best. Priya's mother told Priya. Priya stopped returning my calls for 3 weeks. When she finally called back, she said her mother thought we needed some space before the move. She said it carefully, the way you say something when you are repeating what you've been told. We were never the same after that. She moved to Charlotte in August. We exchanged 2 emails over the next year and then nothing. I didn't find out what my mother had said until 2018 when Priya found me on LinkedIn and sent a message that said, I've been thinking about this for years. I am sorry I listened to her. Your mother told mine you were struggling with attachment. I was 17. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew it sounded like a warning. That was the moment I made the rule. I wrote it in a notebook I kept in my desk at the apartment I had in Midtown. At the time, I still have the notebook. Don't give her anything she can point at. I followed that rule for 7 years. But the rule didn't start with Priya. Priya just gave it a name. The rule started when I was 14, and my mother told my school counselor, without my knowledge, that I had been having difficulty at home, that I was prone to exaggeration, and that anything I said about family stress should be taken with context. I found out because the counselor, a woman named Miss Hargrove, pulled me aside one afternoon and said very quietly, "Your mother called me. I want you to know I make my own assessments." She handed me a pamphlet about the school's peer support program. She said, "Come see me whenever you want. No reason needed." I kept that pamphlet for 2 years. I don't know why. I think I kept it because it was the first piece of paper an adult had given me that my mother hadn't authorized. That detail matters later. By the time I was 23, I had built a wall I didn't know I was building. I had built it the way you build things when you are not trying to build anything. One decision at a time, one phone call I didn't make, one piece of news I kept to myself, one achievement I reported to my aunt before I reported it to my mother, or didn't report to my mother at all. You learn after enough years that some people don't want to know you. They want to manage you. They want to know what you are doing so they can decide what to do about it. Once you understand that, the wall stops feeling like a wall and starts feeling like a reasonable precaution. The first person who ever made me question the wall was Marcus. I met Marcus Okafor in September of 2023 at a continuing education conference for healthcare finance professionals in Nashville, Tennessee. He was presenting a session on forensic audit methodology in nonprofit hospital system. I was in the third row. He used a single slide for the entire 45-minute presentation. One slide, a table with 4 columns. He walked through it slowly and without apology. And when someone in the back asked a question he thought was based on a false premise, he said, "I want to gently push back on that assumption." And then he did, and he was right, and the room knew it. And he moved on without making the person feel small. After the session, I went up to ask a question about a specific audit flag he'd mentioned. He answered it. Then he asked me what I did. I told him. He said, "You are the one who actually implements what I find." He said it like it was an observation, not a compliment. I wrote his name on the back of my conference program. Marcus Okafor, Forensic Audit, Nashville. I didn't think about it again for 3 weeks. Then his firm sent a follow-up resource packet to conference attendees, and his email was on it. And I wrote back with a question I had been turning over since the session. He answered in 4 paragraphs. I answered his answer. We emailed back and forth for 6 weeks before he asked if I wanted to have a phone call instead. The phone call lasted 2 hours and 40 minutes. At the end of it, he said, "I'd like to keep talking to you if that is something you'd want." I said, "Yes." He said, "Good." That was the whole negotiation. We started dating in November of 2023. I didn't tell my mother. He met my Aunt Cecilia at her house in Smyrna in February of 2024. She made rice and beans and watched him eat 2 plates, and then she looked at me across the table and gave a single small nod. That was her whole review. I want to tell you about the first time I told Marcus everything. Not the edited version, not the version where I sound reasonable and measured. The real version with the Priya story and the scholarship and the school counselor and the wall and all of it. We were sitting on the back steps of his apartment in Nashville in March of 2024. It was cold. He had given me his jacket. I talked for almost an hour. He didn't interrupt once. He didn't try to diagnose my mother. He didn't say she sounds like a narcissist or she sounds like she has a personality disorder or any of the things people say when they want to feel like they've solved something. He just listened. The way I have learned since that people who spend their careers following paper trails listen. Like the document is still speaking and you have to let it finish. When I was done, he said one thing. He said, "The paper always tells the truth eventually. You just have to be the one who reads it." I have a feeling he didn't know I would remember that sentence for the rest of my life. We got engaged in August of 2024 on a Tuesday evening. In the kitchen of the house, we had just signed a lease on Indicator. He didn't plan it. He didn't film it. He said, "I want to marry you." I said, "I want that too." He said, Okay. We ordered Thai food and ate it on the floor because the furniture hadn't arrived yet. I sent my mother a save the date in October. She called 3 days later and said it was beautiful and asked for the venue address. I said I'd send it closer to the date. I didn't send it. I didn't lie to her. I just didn't correct her assumption that she was invited. There is a difference between withholding information and refusing to hand someone a weapon. If you've ever known that difference, you know exactly what I mean. We got married on January 18th, 2025. 34 people. A small event space in Decatur called the Linden Room. My Aunt Cecilia sat in the front row on my side. She wore the same blue dress she'd bought for the scholarship ceremony in Macon. She had kept it for 13 years. I didn't know that until she told me the morning of the wedding. She said, I bought it for a day I was proud of you. I figured it still applied. My mother was not there. She had received the save the date. She had not received the address. She had called me 4 times in the week before the wedding, asking for the venue details. I had let those calls go to voicemail. I had not listened to the voicemails. I had not deleted them either. Marcus and I had a first dance, and then we ate dinner, and then we went home. The next morning, I made coffee and watched the light come through the kitchen window, and no one needed me before I'd had my first sip. I remember thinking that was the quietest Saturday I had ever had. I want to tell you what happened 6 weeks later, because the wedding was not the story. The wedding was just the moment the clock started. Stay with my. This is where it changes. On February 27th, 2026, Marcus came home from a client engagement in Birmingham, Alabama. He set his back down by the door. He came into the kitchen where I was working. He sat down across from me at the island. He had a look on his face I had seen once before in Nashville when he was about to push back on a false premise. He said, I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything. I put down my pen. He said, the engagement I just completed was a forensic audit of Meridian Benefits Group. They're a third-party benefits administrator based in Alpharetta. They handle supplemental life insurance products for employer groups across the Southeast. During the audit, we flagged a claim from March of 2019. The policy number is Sierra Lima 44792. The claim was for $41,000. The listed cause was accidental death. The policyholder was listed as deceased. He paused. He said the policyholder's name is Nadia Dolores Reyes. Date of birth, September 3rd, 1993. Social security number ending in 4412. I did not say anything. He said the claim was paid to a beneficiary named Dolores Carmen Reyes. Your mother collected $41,000 on a life insurance policy opened in your name in January of 2018. You were 24. You were alive. You are still alive. The policy was opened without your knowledge or consent. The death claim was filed with a fraudulent death certificate. The certificate listed a hospital in Savannah, Georgia, that does not have a record of your admission or death. The claim cleared because the adjuster at Meridian did not cross-reference the Social Security number against federal vital records. That adjuster was terminated in 2021 for an unrelated compliance issue. The file had been dormant since then. Our audit surfaced it. He stopped talking. The kitchen was very quiet. The overhead light was on. The window above the sink was dark. I had a glass of water in front of me. I looked at it for a long time. I said, how long have you known? He said, 48 hours. I needed to verify the documents before I told you. I needed to be sure. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I said, okay. He slid a manila folder across the counter. It was not thick, 4 pages. He had paper clipped then in order. The first page was a copy of the insurance policy application, Sierra Lima 4 4792, issued January 9th, 2018 by Meridian Benefits, Group Alpharetta, Georgia. Policyholder Nadia Dolores Reyes. Beneficiary Dolores Carmen Reyes. Premium $42 per month. Paid from an account I did not recognize. Coverage amount $41,000. I had been 24 years old in January of 2018. I had been living in a studio apartment in Midtown Atlanta. I had been working my first full-time job in hospital administration. I had been paying my own rent and my own car insurance and my own student loans. I had been alive. The second page was the death claim form filed March 14th, 2019. Cause of death listed as accidental. Attending physician listed as a Dr. R. Vasquez at Memorial Health. Savannah, the signature line had a signature on it. It was not my doctor's signature. I had never been a patient at Memorial Health, Savannah. I had never been to Savannah in 2019. In March of 2019, I had been attending a hospital administration conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had receipts from a hotel on South Tryon Street. I had a conference badge with my photograph on it. I had been alive. The third page was the claim payment confirmation, $41,000. Paid March 28th, 2019 to Dolores Carmen Reyes, wire transfer. Account ending in 7743. The fourth page was a printout from the Georgia Secretary of State's Business Registry. Dolores Carmen Reyes, sole proprietor, registered February 1st, 2019. Business name, DRC Home Services. Business address, a post office box in Marietta, Georgia. The business had been dissolved in November of 2020. She had created a business entity 1 month before she filed the claim. She had dissolved it 20 months after she collected the money. She had been methodical. She had been patient. She had been running a system. If you've ever sat with a piece of paper that rearranged everything you thought you understood about your own life, you know the specific quality of silence I'm describing. It is not the silence of shock. It is the silence of recognition, the silence of a pattern finally completing itself in front of you. I closed the folder. I said, she used my social security number. He said, yes. She had it. She'd had it for years. I said, she opened the policy the same month. I stopped letting her help me with my taxes. He said, I know. I said, I need to make a phone call. He said, I said, to my aunt. He said, okay. He got up. He went to the study. He closed the door quietly behind him. He did not tell me what to do. He never did. I called my Aunt Cecilia at 7:12 p.m. She answered on the second ring. I told her what Marcus had found. I told her the policy number and the date and the amount. I told her about the business entity. I told her about the fraudulent death certificate. I told her all of it slowly in the order it had happened. She was quiet for a long time when I finished. Then she said, Mija, I have a box. I said, what kind of box? She said, a fireproof box in the closet of my second bedroom. I have been adding to it since 2016. I was waiting for you to ask. I was hoping you never would. I said, what is in it? She said, come on Saturday. I'll show you. I drove to Smyrna on Saturday, March 1st, 2026. My aunt was in the kitchen when I arrived. She had made coffee. She had a metal fireproof box on the kitchen table. It was gray. It had a small combination lock on the front. She opened it while I watched. The first document was a photocopy of a credit application from November of 2015, a department store credit card. The applicant name was Nadia D. Reyes. The address was my aunt's address in Smyrna. The card had been opened in my name and sent to my aunt's house. My aunt had intercepted it. She had never used it. She had put it in the box. I had been 22 in November of 2015. I had been a senior in college. I had not applied for a department store credit card. I had not lived at my aunt's address. She turned a page. The second document was a letter from a collections agency dated August of 2016. The debtor listed was Nadia D. Reyes. The original creditor was a furniture rental company in Marietta. The balance was $2,340. My aunt had received the letter at her address. She had called the collections agency and told them the account was fraudulent. She had filed a dispute. She had kept the letter. She said, I paid the balance. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to know what she was doing. I wanted you to figure it out yourself. I was hoping you never would. I said, how much did you pay? She said, it is done. Don't think about it. I said, Cecilia, how much? She looked at the table. $2,340, she said. I paid it into installments. By 2017, your credit was clean. You never knew because there was nothing for you to know. That was the point. I put my hand over my mouth. She reached across the table and touched my wrist. She said, don't. I made a decision. I make it again. She turned the next page. It was a handwritten note on the back of an envelope. Her handwriting. The date at the top said April 3rd, 2016. Nadia. She does this. She has always done this. I don't know how long she has been doing it. I know she uses your name because your name is clean, and hers is not whatever you decide to do when you find out. I will stand behind it. I love you. T.A. Sase. She had written the note 10 years before I read it. She had kept it in a box in case I ever came to ask. She had been ready for a decade. I folded the note. I put it in my jacket pocket. I said, I need to go to Marcus's office on Monday. She nodded. She said, you don't owe me anything. I want you to know I know what you are about to do. And wherever you draw the line, I am there. I stayed for 2 hours. We didn't talk about my mother. We talked about the house in Decatur. She asked if Marcus liked her rice and beans. I said he'd asked me for the recipe twice. She smiled. She went to the cabinet and brought out a bottle of rum she'd been keeping since 2018. She said she'd been saving it for a day. She thought might never come. She poured 2 small glasses and we drank them standing at the kitchen counter. She hugged me at the door. She held on for a long time. She is not a woman who hugs easily. Drive safe, she said. Call me when you are home. I drove home. I called her. She answered before the first ring finished. The note she had written was in my jacket pocket. I read it again in the car, in the driveway, before I went inside. She had written it 10 years ago and kept a copy in the box and handed me the original. On the day I came to ask, she had been ready for a decade. I sat in the car for about 4 minutes. Then I went inside. On Monday, March 3rd, 2026, I went to Marcus's office after the workday ended. He was at his desk finishing documentation. He looked up when I came in. I said, I need you to tell me something, but I need you to be careful how you tell me. I don't want you to compromise the audit. I want you to tell me what the standard reporting obligation is when a forensic audit surfaces. Evidence of insurance fraud involving a third party who is not the audit client. He looked at me for a moment. He said, standard obligation is to report the finding to the audit client and flag it for referral to the relevant state insurance commissioner. In Georgia, that is the Office of Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner. The referral is mandatory if the fraud exceeds $10,000. The finding in this case exceeds that threshold by $31,000. The referral has already been initiated. It was initiated on Friday. I said, what does that mean for the timeline? He said, the commissioner's office will open an investigation. They will subpoena the Meridian records. They will contact the named policyholder. They will contact the beneficiary. That process takes between 60 and 90 days to initiate formal contact. I said, so I have 60 days. He said, at minimum. I said, I want conversation before the letter arrives. He said, what do you want to do? I sat down on the edge of the chair across from his desk. I said, I want to read her the paper trail. I want her to know I have it. And then I want to decide what I do next from a position of information, not anger. He said, okay. He said, what do you need from me? I said, nothing tonight. Tonight, I need to write some things down. I spent the next 4 weeks doing exactly that. I want to be specific about what I did because the version of the story where I decided everything in one night is not true. The first week, I called a consumer protection attorney named Renata Shields, whose name I had gotten from the hospital's legal department. She charged me for 50 minutes of her time. She told me that the fraudulent insurance claim constituted insurance fraud under Georgia Code Title 33, Chapter 1. She told me that the unauthorized use of my social security number to open financial accounts constituted identity theft under Georgia Code Title 16, Chapter 9, Section 121. She told me I could pursue both criminally and civilly. She told me gently that pursuing both would take years and would cost me more than $41,000 in legal fees and time. She said, most people in your position use the knowledge. They don't necessarily use the courts. I asked her how to use the knowledge without lying. She told me. She also told me to do 3 things before I sat across from my mother. Pull your credit report. Document every account you didn't open. Decide what outcome you want before you walk in, not after. I wrote those 3 things on a yellow legal pad. I still have the page. The second week, I pulled my credit report from all 3 bureaus. I had been pulling it annually since 2019. I had never looked at it carefully. This time, I did. The Sierra Lima 44792 policy was not on it because it was a life insurance product, not a credit product. But there were 2 items I had not authorized. A store credit card from a home goods retailer in Marietta, opened October of 2022 with a balance of 0, and a payment history marked current. I had never shopped at that retailer. I had never been to that retailer. The card had been opened in my name and paid on time every month from an account I did not recognize. She had been keeping it clean so I wouldn't notice it. She had been maintaining her infrastructure. The second item was a medical credit account from a dental financing company, opened March of 2023, with a balance of $860, also marked current. I had not financed any dental work in 2023. I had dental insurance through my employer. I had not needed financing. She had opened 2 accounts in my name after the insurance claim. After she had already collected $41,000, she had kept going. She had never stopped. She had simply gotten more careful. I called Renata Shields and added both accounts to the file. The third week, my mother's calls increased. She called 11 times between Monday and Thursday. She left 4 voicemails. The first one was warm. Mija, I've been thinking about Thanksgiving. I know things have been strange between us. I want to fix it. Call me. The second was sharper. Nadia, I need you to call me back. This is important. The third was quieter. I don't know what Marcus has told you, but I want you to hear my side. Please. The fourth was the one I played twice. I played it at 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning, sitting at the kitchen island with my coffee while Marcus was at the hospital. I want you to hear it. Nadia, please. I know you know something. I don't know what you think, but I need you to understand that everything I ever did, I did for you. I did for this family. You don't know what it was like. You don't know what I had to do. Please call me. I am your mother. I am still your mother. She had said, I did for you. She had said, I did for this family. She had not said what she did. She had not named it. She had not used the word insurance or the word claim or the word fraud. She had spoken in the passive voice about an action she refused to describe. She was very practiced at this. I deleted none of the voicemails. I forwarded all four to my own email with a subject line that read November through March voicemails. Preserved. The fourth week, I drafted what I was going to say. I wrote it in a notebook. I wrote it and crossed it out and wrote it again. The first draft was a list of accusations. I crossed it out. The second draft was an explanation of how she had hurt me. I crossed it out. Explanations are for people who don't already know what they did. The third draft was 11 statements, numbered, factual. I read them out loud in the kitchen at 5:30 a.m. with Marcus, at the counter behind me, pretending not to read his phone. When I finished, I asked him if he wanted to change anything. He said, "This is yours. Say it the way it needs to be said." I made one change. I added my aunt's name to statement 7, where it hadn't been. I wanted my mother to hear Cecilia's name in the same sentence as the word box. I wanted her to know that someone had been watching and keeping records since 2016. I wanted her to understand that the paper had always been telling the truth. She had just assumed no one was reading it. The fifth week, I sent a text to my mother. Bridgewood, Surf, Sunday at 2 p.m. 30 minutes. Come alone. She replied within 30 seconds. Yes, thank you. I'll be there. That thank you was the most frightened 2 words I had ever received from her. If you've ever built a file on someone just to prove to yourself that you weren't imagining it, drop a comment with the word file. I'll see it. Let's keep going. Sunday, April 5th, 2026, 2 p.m. Bridgewood FFE, Decatcher. A corner table I had specifically requested when I called the host stand on Saturday afternoon. Public enough that she couldn't escalate, private enough that no one would lean in. She arrived 12 minutes early. She was wearing a blazer. Her hair was done. She had a small purse on the table in front of her and her hands folded on top of it. She looked like a woman who had prepared for a job interview. I arrived at exactly 2 p.m. I had a yellow legal pad in my hand, closed. I had a manila folder next to it, closed. I sat down across from her. She opened her mouth. I held up one finger. I am not here to argue. I said, I am here to inform. I have 11 things to say. When I am done, you can speak. She closed her mouth. I opened the legal pad. 1. I know you've been calling. I am not going to apologize for not answering. 2. The event you were not invited to in January was my wedding. I married Marcus Okafor. You've never met him. You've never met him because I made a decision a long time ago that anything I told you became something you used. I learned that from Priya. I learned it from the scholarship ceremony in Macon. I learned it from every phone call where your first question was, what is new? And your second action was to make a call I didn't know about. 3. In January of 2018, a life insurance policy was opened in my name through Meridian Benefits Group in Alpharetta. Policy number Sierra Lima 44792. Coverage amount $41,000. I did not open that policy. I did not sign the application. The premium was paid from an account I have never had access to. 4. In March of 2019, a death claim was filed on that policy. The claim listed me as deceased. The attending physician listed was a Dr. R. Vasquez at Memorial Health Savannah. I was not a patient at Memorial Health Savannah. I was not in Savannah in March of 2019. I was at a conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have the hotel receipt and the conference badge. The death certificate was fraudulent. 5. The claim paid $41,000 to a beneficiary named Dolores Carmen Reyes. That is your name. The payment was made on March 28th, 2019 to an account ending in 7743. That account was registered to a business entity called DRC Home Services, which you incorporated in February of 2019 and dissolved in November of 2020. 6. This finding was surfaced during a forensic audit of Meridian Benefits Group conducted by my husband's firm. The audit was not initiated because of me. It was initiated because of a routine compliance review. The referral to the Georgia Office of Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner was mandatory and has already been filed. I did not file it. My husband's firm filed it. I am telling you this so you understand that the timeline is not mine to control. 7. My Aunt Cecilia has kept a fireproof box since 2016. It contains a fraudulent credit application from 2015, a collections letter from 2016 that she paid on her own behalf, and a handwritten note she wrote to me in April of 2016 that she kept in case I ever came to ask. She came to ask. I came to ask. The box exists. 8. There is also a home goods store credit card opened in my name in October of 2022 and a dental financing account opened in March of 2023. Both are on my credit report. Neither was authorized by me. Both have been paid on time from accounts. I do not recognize. I have the credit reports. I have the account numbers. 9. I am not reporting you today beyond what has already been reported. That is a choice I am making. It is not absolution. 10. The terms under which you can have my silence on item 7 and 8 are as follows. You will close both unauthorized accounts within 30 days. You will provide a written confirmation of closure. You will not open any financial account in my name or my aunt's name again. If you do, I will refer items 7 and 8 to the Commissioner's office myself, and I will provide the box as supporting documentation. 11. For 32 years, you treated my life as a resource. You treated my name as a line of credit. You treated my absence as an opportunity. I want you to know that. I know, and I want you to know that the paper always tells the truth eventually. Someone just has to read it. I closed the legal pad. She didn't speak for a long time. The KFC was quiet around us. Someone at the counter ordered a coffee. The machine made a low grinding sound. Outside the window, a car moved slowly through the parking lot. Then she said, Mija. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. I was trying to protect you. I was trying to make sure you had something. You don't know what it was like when you were small. You don't know what I had to do. I said, I know what you did. I have the documents. She said, you don't understand. I said, I understand exactly. That is why I am here. She put her hand on the table. She reached toward mine. I moved my hand into my lap. She said, I am your mother. Nadia, I am your mother. We can talk about this. We can fix this. Please. I said, don't say we. She stopped. I said, I am not making this harder. I am making it clear. There is a difference. You taught me the difference. It took me 32 years to learn it. She wiped the corner of her eye with the side of her thumb. She had not cried out loud. She had only let her eyes get full. She was very practiced at this. I opened the folder. I slid 3 pages across the table. The first was a written notice that I was disputing and closing both unauthorized credit accounts and that I was retaining documentation of both. The second was a single page titled Terms of Future Contact. It read, no unannounced visits, no calls outside of agreed windows, no discussions of money, no discussions of any financial account in my name or any family member's name, 1 visit per year in a public place, 2-hour maximum, all future communication in writing. The third was a copy of the note my aunt had written in April of 2016. I had made a copy. I kept the original. I wanted my mother to see her sister's handwriting. I wanted her to know that someone had been watching and writing it down for a decade. I wanted her to understand that the paper had been telling the truth the whole time. She read all 3 pages. She didn't speak. I stood up. My coffee was still full on the table. I left it. I walked to the door. I turned around once. I said, you can have my silence on the box. You can't have my time. I walked out. Marcus was in the car in the parking lot. I got in. I closed the door. I exhaled. He didn't ask. I said, done. He drove us home. I want to tell you what happened in the 6 weeks after that. Not what I imagined would happen, what actually happened. On April 14th, I received written confirmation from the home goods retailer that the credit account in my name had been closed and that the final balance had been paid. The payment came from an account I did not recognize. I did not ask about it. I filed the confirmation in the fireproof box I had purchased and placed in the closet of the 2nd bedroom of our house in Decatur. On April 17th, I received written confirmation from the dental financing company that the account in my name had been closed. Same process, same box. On April 22nd, I received a letter from the Georgia Office of Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner addressed to me as a named party in an ongoing investigation. The letter confirmed that an investigation had been opened regarding policy Sierra Lima 44792 and that I would be contacted for a formal statement. I called Renata Shields. She told me what to say and what not to say. I gave the statement. I told the truth. I provided the documents. I did not editorialize. I let the paper speak. On May 3rd, my mother sent a single text. It said I closed everything. I am sorry. Please. I read it. I did not answer. I did not block her. I left her name in my contacts, exactly as it had always been. Dolores. No special letters, no warnings, just a name. There is a difference between cutting someone out of your life and refusing to keep arguing with them. I am still learning that difference. I expect I will be learning it for a long time. My Aunt Cecilia started coming to Decatur on Sunday afternoons. It started without anyone planning it. The first Sunday in May, she texted that she was in the neighborhood and asked if she could stop by. I said yes. She stayed for dinner. Marcus grilled chicken on the back porch. They talked about the audit profession for 45 minutes, and she asked better questions than most of his colleagues. The next Sunday, she came again. No excuse. She brought a small potted plant from her garden, a white gardenia in a terracotta pot. She set it on the kitchen windowsill. She said, "This one needs direct light and not too much water. It is harder to kill than it looks." She is come every Sunday since. The gardenia is still on the windowsill. It has bloomed twice. I keep a copy of the note she wrote in April of 2016 in a small wooden frame on my desk in the home office. Marcus framed it for me one evening in early May. He said it was the first piece of paper that had told him who I was before he knew my name. The note is 4 sentences long. The last sentence is the one I look at every morning when I sit down to work. Whatever you decide to do when you find out, I will stand behind it. I walk past it every day. I don't stop to read it. I just know it is there. Here is what I want to tell you if you are still listening. I did not get my mother back. I know some of you are hoping for a different ending. You are hoping she called me at the end of the month and said the words I had been waiting to hear since I was 14 years old. She didn't. She won't. She is not built for the apology she actually owes me. And I am no longer interested in waiting for her to become someone she has never chosen to be. What I got was the note. I got the box my aunt kept for a decade in the closet of her second bedroom. In case I ever came to ask, I got a Sunday afternoon in Smyrna where she poured rum into 2 small glasses and said she'd been saving it for a day she thought might never come. I got a husband who framed a piece of paper because it told him who I was 3 years before he knew my name. I got a gardenia on my kitchen windowsill that has bloomed twice and is harder to kill than it looks. I got a phone that I leave face up on the counter now because I am not afraid of who might be calling. I got the right to use the word dead however I want. She told the insurance company I was dead. She was wrong about that. In every way, a person can be wrong. I am not dead. I am 32 years old. I am sitting at a kitchen island with a glass of water and a yellow legal pad and a gardenia in the window and a husband in the next room who listens without fixing things. I am more alive than I have ever been. The paper always tells the truth eventually. You just have to be the one who reads it. That turned out to be enough. If you've ever kept a document just to prove to yourself that you weren't imagining it, you already know what I mean. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. I'll be back next week. Until then, be quiet, be careful, keep the paper